There's a common belief about Max Verstappen that he became unshakable after winning championships, that confidence arrived once results protected him, that calm was a reward for dominance. But his behavior under pressure didn't suddenly appear after titles. It was visible long before he ever became champion. And once you track that behavior over time, a different story emerges. One about exposure, not comfort. Verstappen was forged in high-stakes environments from the very beginning. His composure wasn't built on success, but developed through repeated confrontations with uncertainty and risk. He learned to navigate intense scrutiny while still proving himself, not after validation arrived. This mental fortitude wasn't a product of winning. It was the prerequisite for it. Pressure arrived before protection. Max Verstappen entered elite racing unusually early. He wasn't gradually introduced to adult competition through careful staging or protective development programs. Instead, he was placed directly into it before insulation, before hierarchy, before patience could cushion the transition. Most drivers grow into pressure as their careers stabilize, as they build reputations and support systems that can absorb the impact of failure. Max encountered pressure before any of those stabilizing structures were in place. That matters profoundly, because pressure behaves differently when it arrives before identity, reputation, or safety nets exist. It doesn't feel manageable or distant. It feels immediate, inescapable, and defining. This wasn't preparation by design, some calculated strategy to forge resilience. It was exposure by circumstance, shaped by timing and necessity, rather than intention. What early pressure does to behavior. Early pressure doesn't automatically create calm, produce emotional comfort, or eliminate fear. What it creates is adaptation, specifically fast error correction, reduced tolerance for inefficiency, and direct reactions to perceived interference. When pressure arrives before insulation, there's no room for delayed processing. Responses become immediate because consequences feel immediate. The nervous system learns to operate in a state of constant readiness, where hesitation feels like vulnerability and stillness registers as exposure. Behavior becomes compressed, streamlined around survival patterns rather than reflective choice. This isn't fearlessness or confidence in the traditional sense. It's compression, the reduction of internal space between stimulus and response, leaving little room for the luxury of contemplation or the buffer of emotional distance. Why young Max looked aggressive. Early in his career, Max Verstappen reacted visibly to the intense pressures of Formula One. Incidents on track triggered instant responses, frustration surfaced publicly, and conflict was consistently externalized for everyone to see. That behavior often gets labeled simply as aggression or immaturity. But when viewed through the lens of pressure exposure and psychological development, it reads quite differently. This wasn't recklessness or poor judgment. It was an unfiltered pressure response from someone still learning to manage extreme stress. When you don't yet have the reassurance that comes with experience and proven success, reactions naturally move outward rather than inward. They're not strategic or calculated, they're fundamentally protective mechanisms. Young Max wasn't deliberately acting out or trying to create controversy. He was simply reacting in real time to pressure he hadn't yet learned to contain, process, or channel constructively. The transition phase, pressure without reassurance. Then came the most unstable phase of his development. Verstappen was competitive, but not yet dominant. He was capable, but still working to prove his legitimacy at the highest level. He was visible on the world stage, but not yet protected by the cushion of consistent results and championship credibility. This is precisely where pressure intensifies to its peak. Because now the driver knows what's possible, he's tasted success, he understands his potential, but he doesn't fully control the outcome. In this precarious phase, reactions stay external because outcomes still directly threaten status and perception. Every lost position, every compromised result, Every moment of struggle feels like regression rather than learning. The pressure isn't just present in these moments, it becomes evaluative, judgmental, and existentially threatening to the identity being constructed. Championship era. Pressure becomes internal. Once titles arrived, something shifted within the structure of responsibility. Not pressure itself, that remained constant, but its direction fundamentally changed. Identity stabilized around recognized roles. Authority settled into its designated channels. Legitimacy stopped being questioned at every turn, no longer requiring constant defense or justification. Pressure didn't disappear from the system. Instead, it went quiet, transforming in character and expression. Rather than projecting outward in visible displays of stress or urgency, it began compressing inward, creating a different kind of tension. Responses narrowed considerably, becoming more measured and deliberate. Reactions shifted from necessary reflexes to optional choices, carefully considered rather than automatic. This wasn't calm replacing intensity in any simple sense. It was containment replacing expression. The same force redirected, channeled differently, held closer rather than released into the environment, connecting past to present. Here's the key insight. The same early pressure exposure produced two distinctly different behaviors at two different career stages. In the early career phase, it manifested as visible aggression. Later in the career, it transformed into visible silence. But the difference isn't rooted in personality or personal growth. It's entirely about position and context. When pressure arrives before any sense of reassurance or security, it leaks outward into the world around us. When reassurance arrives first, that same pressure stays internal, contained within. The underlying mechanism driving the response stayed exactly the same throughout. Only the surrounding environment changed, and with it, the visible manifestation of that internal pressure shifted completely. Why this makes Max different from most champions. Many champions soften after success. Reactions slow, edges dull, and urgency fades. But Max didn't soften. His reactions narrowed. Instead of broad emotional response, pressure became focused, efficient, and controlled. That's not comfort. That's familiarity. Pressure stopped being novel long before it stopped being intense. The real struggle. This reframes the idea of struggle entirely. Max Verstappen's struggle wasn't primarily against rivals. It was learning how to carry pressure before anyone else had to, before protection, before hierarchy, before certainty. By the time championships arrived, the hardest adjustment was already complete. People think Max Verstappen became calm because racing got easier. It didn't. He became precise because pressure stopped being new. And once pressure becomes familiar, it stops demanding reaction and starts demanding execution. If you're Orange Army, you've watched this evolution happen in real time. Share this with another Max fan who understands that composure isn't the absence of pressure. It's the result of living with it early.